Shake, shake.
Help me, Marina!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I am Gooey, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, McKenna.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
I'm really excited about this one. Very unique game we've got today. Mm-hmm. And we've got a first-time guest on the show. We are happy to be joined by Merritt K.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you. Before we talk about anything, actually, I wanted to shout out, we were just actually looking over, before we came to record here, your book, Land Party. As, you know, I've only, I think in my life, been to one actual LAN party, but just as someone who kind of appreciates playing games in the room with someone, and also as you say in your book, like the pictures in the book kind of show so many other, you see other little bits of life at the time and stuff like that, and I do really appreciate that element of it. So yeah, thank you. It's a great book.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I guess it does. Well, McKenna, you've never been to a LAN party, have you?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't really my scene necessarily, but there's a lot of overlap though with the era of like our show. And I was wondering, you know, first thing we ask with any new guest is like, what is your history with the Nintendo 64 itself?
Wow. Yeah, I was like right in the target demo when the N64 came out because we were a Nintendo family in my house. I know, I had friends who were Sega families, and I had one friend who had a TurboGrafx who was rightfully shunned by everyone. Weirdly, also, that friend's parents wouldn't let him or his sister watch like violent shows. But they were like, okay, so no violent shows, and also no Nintendo, no Sega, but we will get you a TurboGrafx so you can
like
play
Splatterhouse.
Splatterhouse, like that, a bunch of World War II style games. Yeah, I don't know, weird, but yeah. So we had a Super Nintendo in our house growing up. So when the N64 came out, I had been like, reading about it in Nintendo Power, which we never subscribed to, but we had a library at the end of our block that would get magazines as well as books. So, every month I'd like go and like borrow the new Nintendo Power and be like checking it out. And yeah, so I was like really excited about Mario and the new Zelda and Earthbound 64, which of course we all love and have played to death.
Classic, yeah.
Classic game that exists. And yeah, so we got an N64, and it was, a huge deal in our house. Like, I remember actually the first time I played an N64 game was at Nintendo was doing this like tour with the N64 around, I think, the US and Canada. But so I grew up in Canada, and it was at this amusement park called Ontario Place, and in this kind of like big indoor structure where they had set up all these, like the booths with the N64, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to try it?" And I was like, "Oh my God, whoa!" And it was Dar Docks, and I remember like the music just coming in, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is this? Like, this is unbelievable." So like that song I think is iconic for a lot of people, but for me it's like that is like the spark of like, wow, this is a video game, this is crazy. So yeah, it's I loved the N64 for a long time, and sadly mine was stolen from our apartment basement in storage when I was in college, along with a bunch of like Star Wars Episode 1 memorabilia that we had for some reason.
No, that hurts even more.
Like
I think.
we had like it was like my N64 and a Watto cup topper, and at this point I'm probably sadder about the Watto cup topper. But yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with the system, and I I didn't have a disc-based system until the Dreamcast, and so there was a lot of like playground stuff about like, well, the PlayStation has discs and those are better, and it's like, no, but the N64 has cartridges and they load faster. Like trying to come up with reasons why your consumer choice was better because we were children. But yeah, so I go way back, and it was fun revisiting the game for this week that we're covering.
I would kill for that Watto topper for sure.
It was so cool.
To go back to one of the first things you said, I only ever knew one person who had a TurboGrafx IRL, and it was when it was in the 2010s. He still had this, and everyone his nickname was Murder. So that was like the weirdest guy I've ever known. So that's always my impression of like the target market for that thing.
I have a TurboGrafx Mini now for some reason. I'm not really sure why. It's kind of cute though. It's like really small, but there were some good games on it, but it was just like such a weird choice. It was like, you never heard of anyone owning a Master System either. I think they were a lot bigger in like South America and Europe. But yeah.
What? Yeah. Did you ever, McKenna? Did you ever have any like weird consoles?
No.
I think like the weirdest thing I ever had, I had an Ouya.
Oh, me too. They sent me one.
Oh, hell yeah. I ended up just giving it to a friend because I was like, I don't know what to do with this thing.
It was not great.
You still seem like you're pondering it.
No, I was just thinking like if anybody else I knew had anything weird. I think we all just had like the popular stuff. Yeah. Like
normal non-freak consoles. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a very non-freak life for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. No.
It always felt weird spotting like some of those like weird consoles in the wild as a kid, because it was like you'd hear legends of them, Like I've told the story on a lot of things before of like the first time I ever played the CDI and played like Wand of Gamelon or whatever, and it was like I almost started bawling because I was like, I never thought I would even see this. It was magical.
That's probably the weirdest thing I've had contact with.
The weirdest console you've ever touched.
Like for me it was, maybe it was just where I lived and like the kinds of things that people bought, but I only ever saw a Saturn one time as a kid when a friend rented one from the video store. Like my like rich only child friend who had, both a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo, like rented a Sega Saturn, and no one I know owned one. And I actually own one now because some friends got me one for my birthday a couple of years ago. But like, yeah, there were just these weird, the kind of oddball consoles, and most people, had a Super Nintendo and then like an N64 or a PlayStation, and they always, seem to think of themselves as much more like sophisticated and grown up because they were like, oh, well, it has discs, and
and you had to kind of convince yourself that it wasn't really cool when it really was.
Right. Yeah. God, I wish I had a PlayStation. Those demo discs, those are great. We didn't have anything like that for the Nintendo 64.
You could hear the whole song on Tony Hawk.
Oh my God, with lyrics? Yeah, God. Incredible.
Let's continue!
We normally, on the show, we do a little flashback segment where we talk about what was going on at the time the games came out, trying to catch some other little bits of whatever, history or culture or pop culture type stuff. But since our last episode, we kind of covered a lot of ground. We covered like 3 racing games in one. And we've only moved forward in the timeline one day. So, but Merritt, I didn't want to, deprive you of this segment of the show. It's everyone's favorite to have a bunch of things, artists listed at them, and hit songs. So, we're still going to do it. We're going to talk about what was going on.
Yeah.
October 1st, 1997.
That was my birthday.
Oh
wow!
Well, happy birthday!
I mean, it is every year. That happens to be my birthday every year. But yeah,
Okay, so have you ever made the connection that Mischief Makers came out on your birthday? Were you like?
I don't know if I actually realized that. Even at the time,
in America, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't own Mischief Makers. I think I only ever rented it. So it was never clear like when things actually came out to me
Sure.
because it was like, does the video store have it? No. Okay, then it's not out yet.
Oh, I think this is cool. We discovered like your birthday game. We got to figure out what those are for us.
I think Doom 64 came out the day after my birthday.
Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, well, so October 1st, not only did Mischief Makers come out, but the number one song at the time was Four Seasons of Loneliness by Boyz II Men.
Wow.
Other top songs, we had Honey by Mariah Carey, You Make Me Wanna
Classic.
by Usher,
Okay. Really? Wow.
How Do I Live, Leanne Rimes, Quit Playing Games with My Heart, Backstreet Boys, Mo Money, More Problems, Semi-Charmed Life,
Oh my God.
and Two Become One by Spice Girls. Yeah,
Wow.
a lot of heavy
big
hitters.
year. Big day. Big month.
Number one album at the time was The Dance by Fleetwood Mac. This is when they had a big
Wow.
reunion. Hello, it's Gooey from the future, and McKenna is over there.
Hi.
Doing trivia. We got our facts wrong here. The number one album was actually Butterfly by Mariah Carey. So I wanted to apologize. I'm sorry, McKenna.
All good.
And I'm sorry to everyone for doing disinformation. Back to the show. Number one movie was The Peacemaker with George Clooney and Nicole Kidman. And in video games, Combat Chess came out for Windows. I believe this was a follow-up or a spiritual successor to Battle Chess.
It's like
Uh-huh.
a Shotgun King.
It's like, yeah, but it's just really, it's just
Shotgun King
chess.
is good. But it probably, yeah, it was probably like that Star Wars battle chess game where like you just play chess but watch really long animations play out.
Yes. I remember you'd like, I had just like, I think I had battle chess, and it'd be like, the rook was a knight, and you'd, click, tell them to move, and they can move across the board, so he just, he moved like real time here. We didn't cross a lot of like major cultural milestones, so I just wrote down what we had that happened that day, according to some On This Day website, and they have the Carolina Hurricanes lose the franchise's debut NHL game to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I don't know if I've heard of the Carolina Hurricanes, like if that's a real team.
I don't know. I don't know many
Okay.
hockey teams.
They are a real team. They were, I think they were the Whalers before they were the Carolina Hurricanes.
They stunk it up here.
Yeah,
Not a great start. But on a more positive note, Minnesota Timberwolves NBA forward Kevin Garnett, just 2 years out of high school, signs a record 6-year, $123 million contract extension.
Wow,
So,
anything truly is possible.
Anything's possible!
And with that, we are perfectly set up. McKenna, if you want to tell us about...
Mischief Makers!
Mischief Makers is a 2.5D side-scrolling platform adventure developed by Treasure, in which you'll grab, shake, and throw your way through a wide variety of levels and worlds. You play as Marina, a robot assistant to Professor Theo, who has been kidnapped by the evil Empire on their journey to planet Clancer. Marina will navigate across a planet on the brink of war through levels with all kinds of different gameplay, like rounding up kids, fighting bosses, navigating mazes, riding a tricycle, free-falling, or participating in events in an athletic festival. You'll also be able to grab, shake, and throw just about anything in the game, such as enemies, weapons, bombs, and clan balls. There are even some items you can put inside a clan pot to shake and combine, like 4 flowers into 1 ninja star. Each level is filled with gems to collect. Blue and green gems restore health, red gems allow you to continue your game if you die, and gold gems will affect the ending of the game. Collect enough gold gems, and you'll get to see the surprise ending.
This is where I learned, 4 flowers makes 1 ninja star.
Yeah, that's what a combo.
So, Merritt, what's your history with this game?
Yeah, so I definitely rented Mischief Makers a few times. I'm pretty sure I can remember the first time I played it. It was at a friend's house. And the thing about Mischief Makers when it came out was, like, I think it was, if not a launch title, then it was really early, right?
Yeah,
In-
we're just, it's like just just under a year. September will be like, or no, just over.
Yeah.
September was a year
right.
in. Yeah.
So it was pretty early in the console's lifespan, and we were really in this moment where everyone was like, 3D games are going to be 3D. 3D is the future, 2D is the past, and we don't care about that anymore. So there were a lot of magazine articles at the time and just like general opinions that, like, why would I pay money to buy a game that is 2D to play it on the N64 when I can play Mario 64 or any number of less good 3D platformers? But we were so wrong. And just we, it was that was the style at the time. It was very much just like 3D graphics. That's all really that matters. And
like as we're reading a lot of the Nintendo powers at the time, and we're also, I wanted to say, we are also seeing a lot of those things that make you sad about what people are really excited about. Like you said, the Earthbound 64. What was some of the other top stuff? The disk drive.
Oh, yeah.
The disk drive with Doshin, the giant, and Mario Paint. 64. Yeah.
That's like one of the top things they're hyped. They're like, oh, we're anticipating this so bad, and then they're acting like Zelda is like just around the corner.
Yeah, it's always just around the corner, but it's
God, that wait for Ocarina of Time seemed like 30 years. It was unbelievable. But so I really liked Mischief Makers even at the time. I'm not sure that I put together at that point that it was by the same people who had made Gunstar Heroes, which was one of the games that made me most jealous of my friends who owned a Sega Genesis, because it was just so fast and like colorful, and the character designs were all great. The humor was really great. And so much of that carries over. And in a lot of ways, Mischief Makers kind of feels like a spiritual sequel. Kind of, they made Gunstar Heroes and then Alien Soldier, which is like, let's just do the really intense boss fights from that game. And then Mischief Makers is like, let's do all the other fun parts, like all the weird ideas. Like, we had 4 levels and one of them is a big casino board game. What if we had like 30 levels and that was just like one of them? So yeah, I was really into it at the time, and revisiting it recently was a cool reminder of that.
I don't know where it came from, but we had it. I gotta ask my brother about that. We're gonna have him on the show talking about it in some form, and so I can get the full story. But we had it for whatever reason, and I always remembered it as like, I couldn't quite remember exactly what the game was, but in my head it was like, it had like a bunch of mini games or something. Like that's what I remember doing in it, and it kind of is true, because like some of the levels are just like, do this one challenge for the level, and so yeah, it makes sense why I thought of it that way. But I had a weird like kind of like fondness for it, only just because it was one of those like pieces of media that I like remembered, but I like the memory was kind of hazy, that I almost had this like air of mystique to it. Where I was like, what exactly was this? So it felt cool to kind of like uncover that. You had never played it.
No, I hadn't heard of it until we started the podcast, and I was, looking at, I keep looking back at the list of games to see what's coming up, and saw this, and then your brother, he streams on Twitch, and one of his like sound bites for channel redemptions is Shake Shake. So I was familiar with the sound bite, not familiar with it at all before this.
What was your like first impression playing it?
I was surprised at how different it is from everything we've played on the Nintendo 64 so far.
Yeah. Yeah, like we have read like the same things where people are just like, even in Nintendo Power, they're like, why would you want to play a 2D game ever again? And it is so funny thinking about that now, with just like, I think like a majority of the games that come out that I know for sure you're interested in. I think me too. Like those are kind of primarily, I mean, I like, all sorts of games, but I think primarily that's kind of what I play the most of.
Yeah, probably. Me too.
I have this like, I'm thinking now, because we're getting into now an era where like we're now starting to see nostalgia for like games like kind of going to that style of now like the 5th, 6th generation consoles that I think we're gonna approach some sort of middle point where like games only like incrementally look better now. Yeah. And the nostalgia line is moving forward, that eventually, like, hopefully there won't be that sort of like, I feel like we've gotten past like 2D, but now like, I don't know, early 3D, like some of those weird games, like where I think all of it'll be considered valid, I guess. But Mischief Makers itself, like I love that sort of in between the eras vibe, like kind of like in I don't know, Symphony of the Night kind of has that sort of thing, like where they mix 2D and 3D together. I don't know, I can't think of a lot of, especially on Nintendo 64, like there's not really a lot of games like that.
I mean, I think people forget too that older 2D games had a lot of limitations on things they could do. Like, and you sort of see this even in Mischief Makers a little bit, but something, like games on the Genesis and Super Nintendo would have to cheat to get around some of the stuff. Like when you'd have like a really big boss, there's a limit on how big sprites could be, so they would like break it up, and that's why you have like a lot of those bosses where their arms are made up of like a bunch of orbs or whatever.
Right.
And like there were limits on sprite scaling and rotation and all of these things that we kind of just take for granted now because they seem really basic, because at this point they kind of are. But back then, like it was not trivial to do that stuff. And so Treasure was like, okay, we're going to do something on the N64, and it will let us do some things that like we couldn't actually really do on the Genesis, because this was their first Nintendo game as well. They had developed only for Sega consoles before this, I think like 1 or 2 Saturn games, but mostly the Genesis.
We only just recently played we played Gunstar Heroes. We're going to probably talk about that eventually. But like starting to look, because I wasn't as familiar with Treasure, but we were looking kind of back through their catalog, and it does seem like all their games do sort of come with, like, they remind me of a lot of games I played from that era, but they all sort of have like some, I don't know, like a unique spin. Even this, like the, making the central mechanic like shaking things. That's kind of a unique take. I mean, I've seen it more now. There's been games since then that have had that sort of thing, but I don't know. What did you think about the shaking mechanic?
It was fun. It was like every new thing I encountered was what's gonna happen when I shake this? Just a totally new discovery, and maybe the same thing wouldn't always happen. Like especially with the clan balls, you'd shake it and something different would happen depending on
something like come out of it, or
that. Then you get to throw things too. Literally, like anything you can pick up, you can throw. You can pick up and throw the good guys, which makes me feel a little bit bad. I'm like, no, I didn't mean to.
I did feel bad, but I couldn't tell. Like they all kind of freaked me out anyway. I was like, I can't tell any of these. Yeah, the Clancers, little freaks. Like it's hard to know who's on your side a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Clancers were weird. Just like I guess like the world in general is very strange. Like everything has faces on it. I don't know. I think that's one thing that's always kind of stuck in my mind. Like the faces kind of have haunted me since then. Just like all these people with weird faces living in houses made out of their own faces. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of funny when you think about it, because like what's another game where everything has faces, but you just like don't notice it because it's a little more subtle and it seems totally normal.
Right. Yeah,
Mario, right? Like
yeah.
Mario games, like the backgrounds have faces, the blocks have faces, like, but they're not like really sad looking, like,
No.
you know, like grimaces. So it's a little different, but yeah, like the world feels so like strange, and you sort of start to wonder, like, okay, are all these things like alive? Like, are these bricks like alive? Are these clan balls alive? Like, what is? And also, there's like some of them are cats, some of them are like just weird animals. Like, how does any of this work? And the answer is like, it doesn't matter. It's a treasure game. Like, it's just kind of just vibes. But it is like, it's very strange. And then also like the fact that their spaceship looks like a traditional Japanese house on the inside.
Yeah, it's cozy.
Like it's it's like this cozy little like space, and then that you go back to in between every chapter, and then you go back out into like the weird like Planet Clancer world.
I don't know. It certainly was a choice. Like everything has a face. But yeah, like the game itself does have sort of a, like with the story and I guess the overall tone, it does the sort of like, I don't know. It's got like the fourth wall breaking and stuff, and it kind of. It jokes around a little bit about the fact that it's a game itself, and I feel like it's kind of doing that of like, okay, let's just here's the next level, you know.
I think the faces too, they look kind of like ghost faces, which is funny because there are ghosts in the game.
Yeah, they just
like, oh, I'm just like constantly being haunted by this.
Yeah, they're like ghosts, they're aliens, like, you know, yeah. But I think too, like I think some of the weirdness that always stuck out for me was the fact that it was like it was like kind of mixed between 2D and 3D assets and stuff like that. Like I don't like, just as a kid, like, I mean, there's probably a lot of games I played that way that it didn't stick out as much, but like for me, like I don't know a lot of games that I played that actually like had that look, you know. It was either like sprites or like, you know, something like, I don't know, Zelda, where yeah, they have some assets that are straight up 2D things that they're tricking you with, but this was like, you know, it's just it sticks out way more. But it's something that kind of like, that sort of thing kind of always blows my mind in a weird way. Like, it reminds me of when you watch certain movies and you can kind of see like there's certain scenes where you can tell they achieved whatever effect by like mixing all these different types of media, like matte paintings and sets and stuff like that. And that's kind of something that I always, when I play these sort of games, or like Symphony of the Night is another one where it's like, it's like really clever, like really creative use of the craft, you know, mixing the different types of media.
I was just thinking that like, I think a lot of modern 2D looking games, you will use 3D assets, but in a way that you can't tell that it's 3D. They kind of use it to, you know, get over technical limitations of 2D assets.
Right,
but
yeah.
But they make it in a way that it blends and it just all looks 2D.
Yeah.
But this is like, you can really see.
Yeah, or it does stick out a lot more. I think like, yeah, it's not, I would say it's like, I don't know, it actually has like kind of a greater effect. I feel like it almost takes on a different effect now looking back on it now, where it almost, I don't know, looks like I always think of like in the Link's Awakening remake where they made it look like little toys. That's kind of how I feel like looking back on games that look like this, is like they look like little dioramas and things like that, which some games at the time, you know, leaned into that. But it's a cool look, and it's got, and like the sound too, like even the soundtrack kind of like matches this very, I don't know, strange vibe they're going with. I don't know, Merritt, how would you describe the soundtrack if you had to?
God, I mean, it's it's like very odd. Like I will say, really good use of voice samples. In Mischief Makers. Just like the, Shake Shake obviously is classic. But also just like the professor, like every time, the end of every chapter when, well, first of all, it's kind of weird how every chapter ends with like her rescuing him and then him being like doing the like Rama 1/2 like lecherous thing, and she just like is like, I'm not that kind of girl, and like whips him like around the planet. And then you get the line where he's like, "Help me, Marita."
It does sound really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is weird. And then she's like, "Yeah, I'll just go after him. I'll go save him again." Sure.
Yeah, I mean it's her job, right? But but yeah, it's like very whimsical. I would say the music. I mean, Treasure Games, Gunstar Heroes 2, really good music.
Oh, yeah.
I think they had that pretty like locked down back then.
Oh yeah. Gunstar was awesome. I feel like a lot of good like in the samples. I don't know. I'm bad at describing music, as I've said before, but like the way a lot of like the instruments they pick, there's like a lot of more like, I don't know, like wind types of instruments or like vocal type samples, which sort of, I don't know, I guess like, again, like being in this world full of faces and the soundtrack is like these weird voice samples going like, oh, 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 oh. It's like, are they singing?
Choral effects. Yeah.
They make me think of like what are those things in Animal Crossing that,
oh, the gyroids?
Gyroids, yeah. Like, I always imagine the soundtrack being made by them. I think when I was a kid, I didn't understand they were different things.
They kind of give off a similar vibe.
Yeah, both a little unnerving, for sure. I mean, I like that overall vibe, and we sort of talked about, like, the story. I couldn't exactly recount, like, the specifics. It seems like they just come up with a different reason for the professor to get kidnapped and for you to go through and get to the like those beast guys at the end of each world. I can't quite remember like the details of what happened, but like I said, even Marina is like, "Oh, are you the final boss of the stage?" Like,
right? Yeah. Oh, do I have to kick your ass to go to the next level? Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, there would be like moments of text with the other Clancer guy you play as or whatever, but I don't know, do you have any memories of the storyline at all?
Mostly that the professor kept getting kidnapped. I was like, what's going on with you? And then there was a festival in the middle of the game.
yeah. There was a whole Olympics type
I was like,
thing.
I feel like this is not the vibe. Like, you guys are, I feel like you're about to go to war with each other and you're just holding a festival that's where the professor is like
he's the prize.
It's kind of nothing. Like, the story is not, I mean, it's like a lot of their games where it's like, there's a reason why things are happening, but like, it's definitely not the main like purpose of why you're playing it. I feel like the characters kind of stand out without needing like a strong narrative, because it basically is just like rescue the princess, except it's rescue the professor. By the time they get to the end, they're sort of just like playing with that. Like the first time it's like, oh no, he got kidnapped, we have to rescue him. And by the last time it's just like he's just sort of like being like the fake Marina shows up and is like, gee, play hide and seek with me.
Right.
And he's like, okay. And then they do the help me Marina voice line while he's just kind of like frolicking outside with her.
Yeah,
so they're just like, whatever.
Just play the clip.
Like, yeah. But I do really like the characters in this game, especially the Beast Actor.
Oh, yeah.
Like the trio of like animal guys who are kind of like I feel like, at least this is what I thought when I was a kid, and I don't know, maybe they're doing something else, but it seemed to me they were doing like a Power Rangers type thing, or like a Sailor Moon type thing, where they're like, I will serve justice and defeat the evildoers. And then they're like evil overlord guys like, wait, no, don't, hey. And like they're constantly just like, we're going to go beat up Marina because she's evil. And he's like, no, hey, don't do that. I need them alive. Like, please don't.
That's not the mission, yeah. I could see the power, especially because, we didn't fully earn the secret ending, but we watched it where like they transform back into humans. I guess I didn't know they were humans before. I think doesn't even one of them say like.
Yeah, he's like
he
forgot he was human, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that does give a little bit of a like it's Morphin Time type vibes to that for sure. And they had some of the best like sound clips, some of the more memorable like dialogues, like where they're talking about justice and when especially in the boss fights themselves, like I don't know, it made those usually a lot more epic when they were involved.
Yeah, I like what's his name? The very first one, the wolf guy. Lunar. Yeah, Lunar, obviously, because moons were wolves.
Yeah.
But his line that he always yells is like, "Through fire, justice is served," and then he just pulls out his gun and starts shooting, and like that goes so hard.
Oh yeah, so sick.
Yeah,
the ape guy was just all right.
He's fine. He's like
between Lunar and the Phoenix, I think it was, or whatever he had the Phoenix, the last fella you fight. Like they had like I don't know, like they had these awesome lines, they had these sick designs, and also like these badass like mechs or whatever that again like Megazord together at the end.
I think that's also why I thought it was like a Power Rangers thing, because they do like a Megazord Voltron type thing where they have their mechs that combine into the huge robot that's like the final boss, where you have to like catch his fists and throw them back at it.
Yeah, so awesome.
Mm-hmm. I was just
looking at the character art.
Characters on the manual, the bosses.
The manual itself actually does have really cool art. That I mean, some of it is like in the game as well, like the little panels and stuff like that. That's something that I thought was really cool. Like all that artwork looked really nice.
It's such a colorful game. All of them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a lot of Nintendo 64 ones are, but I think this in particular is really bright. Like with the bosses. I
liked actually all those guys, like all their fights and stuff too were really cool. Like that was one thing that was kind of like sweet about the game, was like you'd play one level and it's like the silliest thing you've ever done in a video game, and then 2 levels later it's like this, like I think most of the fights, like once you figured out what to do, they weren't too bad, but some of them were pretty intense. Like they definitely required like multiple tries. They had me sweating a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe you did. We like passed the controller off on different levels, and the way that it worked out, I think you did more of the bosses and I did more of the mini bosses.
Yeah, you had like the
the worm,
the dog.
But yeah,
like the worm, the dog, and the frog. Yeah.
Sometimes I was like, I don't know if I'm doing damage right now.
Yeah. It would be okay because they usually flash, but a lot of times, like even if nothing happened, like there would be some noise or something. You're like, there's just a lot going on in the game that it's not that it's not telegraphed, but it's more like there's just so much happening. Mm-hmm. Like especially I remember like when you were playing, there's the cat dodgeball.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have to like stand at a specific spot and throw the ball. And I was like, why am I only hitting it like occasionally? I don't know what to do here.
I love the cat because it's just like one of those things where it like comes out of nowhere. Like, so you do the whole like Olympics thing, which for me was one of the hardest parts when I was a kid, because like the dashing and jumping stuff were they're so finicky.
So hard.
But then you win the Olympics and this cat shows up and is like, I'm going to beat Marina, but I'm so weak, I can't. So you have to play dodgeball with me. And it's like, okay. And like they say that there's rules and you have to stay on your side. And I think if you do stay on your side, that's how you get the gold gem, because a lot of those gold gems, like I never saw the full ending when I was a kid, because a lot of them are either just really inscrutable or really difficult. You get the gold gem if you stay on your side, but you can also just go on the other side and wail on the cat. And then when you beat it, it's like you only won because you cheated. But it still carries you into the boss fight, and then you're like riding on his back against Lunar.
So that was so sweet too. it just felt good too, like to be able to like jump up and ride on a missile or whatever. Oh,
Yeah,
Right,
the
yeah.
various things you get on. I like the tricycle that
Yeah,
appeared a
that's-
few times. I got frustrated on the one where you're like you have like a water wave that's following you, and some
yeah.
of the jumps were a little hard to make, but
Mm.
it was goofy.
For those gems, which is a great aspect of the game. Like it's got sort of, it reminds me a little bit of like Doom, where it's like, you want to collect all the gems, get all the secrets, but then they also have the time element. So like it kind of encourages you to go back and do the challenges again for different purposes, which was fun to do, like try to beat your score or 100% the game or whatever. But we of course had I think you had it up on your phone there, but we were looking when we were trying to round up some of the gems. We were looking at I don't remember what year it's from, but a game fact that quite it explained them all quite well. And we started going through them and collecting them, but we ran out of time. But the only ones that were like, at least in like the first 3 worlds that were like really difficult were like for all the bosses. It's like beat it without taking damage, like for like Lunar and all them. Which
Which they're really hard. Yeah.
it was hard enough to beat it, in the first place. Which now I think I could do after banging my head against the wall trying to not die, and I never succeeded at that. But I'm pretty sure I could beat them. But I get the time. But that was a great like feature, like having the gems and the time, and I think too, it went well with kind of how all the levels are these, just like almost. Some of them are longer, but a lot of them are these little one-off sort of challenges. So it made, like, when you messed it up, like it was one of those things where it's like, okay, let's get back to it, like just it was almost like immediately. So I almost kind of appreciated that the levels were shorter, especially because there's so many of them in each world. So added up, it's a decent amount of game still.
While we were getting the gold gems, I said that it reminded me of the strawberries in Celeste, because they're just this extra little thing you can collect that changes the ending in a way.
That has a feeling too of like you could be failing this little jump over and over or whatever you're trying to get for it, but like it almost puts you right, like you can get right back into it right away. So it's like it's got certain things that are like very difficult, but they, like, I don't know, it's almost like addicting to like want to try it again.
Yeah.
There's so many ideas here, and it's really impressive how they just let them go. Like, it kind of reminds me of much more recently playing the new Mario game, the new 2D Mario game, where just like almost every level is just like, here's a new thing that's happening, and we're just gonna do one level with it. Whereas another game that could be like a whole like area or something. But Mischief Makers is like, oh yeah, there's a pot that when you drop stuff into it, you can combine it into other items, and it's like, that's crazy. Like that's a huge concept.
That could be a whole
and
game.
You're doing it in like 2 levels, and then you just drop it. But I remember like, encountering that and just being like, oh my God, what can I mix in this? And like, there's so many things happening, and it's just like encouraging you to play around with things so much, which I really like. Like, it works so well, where it will introduce a mechanic and then build on it, like, and then just move on to something else. Like, there's one level in the fire like area where there are these platforms that start sinking, and you have to jump off them. And that's pretty standard, like in video games, right? Like, oh, you can't stay on this too long, otherwise you'll fall into lava. But then what they do is the next level is like the same kind of thing, except there's also these like little chutes that are dropping these enemies down onto it, and they also have weight. So they like, you have to throw them off so that they don't weigh the platform down. And it's just like little things like that where they're playing around with interesting ideas. It just feels, I think, partly because they didn't go the 3D route and weren't using a lot of their resources on trying to create a 3D world. It feels like it's a lot more technical and a lot more like experimental in terms of the gameplay than a lot of other things that were coming out around the same time.
Yeah, I think like most of the other games we've covered so far, in the library, like are about more of like iterating on like one or two, types of gameplay things, like in Mario, there's a lot of variety there, obviously, but it's like they're the kind of core mechanics they're iterating on or whatever. Whereas in this, it will be like they'll iterate on things, but then they will just drop them and go on to something else. Like McKenna, you mentioned the tricycle. I think of like there's like a level where you use it in a puzzle and it's cool, and then like I don't know the order, but I think then later there's the level you were talking about where you have to like race it, and it's totally different, like what you do with it. And then I don't know if you really encounter the tricycle again. I can't remember.
I think there's one or more.
Is there?
One or
Okay.
two more times, but yeah, not a ton of it, but it's memorable.
Say, and the clan pot, that was a good example too, for sure. Like there's even some levels they throw one in and you're like, what am I supposed to use this for? And there's one level in particular where you don't actually need to use it at all to win. It's only to get the gold gem, and you have to do something really weird with it.
Yeah, you have to like combine the other, like the blue gems to like make other gems and then make the gold gem.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one where it's like you have to just find one of those clan pots and like shake it, and it's already got guys in it. And it makes another guy you can fly
or you
around
use or there's the one where you use it not to combine something, but to basically like gather up a bunch of kids and then take them to like this playground, basically.
I did that level, and I remember at first I brought them all to the area, and like I set it down to start taking them out, and some of them started jumping back in. I was like, no, you're not supposed to do that.
And like it seemed like they wanted to be in it.
Yeah.
You had to like take them. There's like a ledge, right?
Yeah, there's like a platform above this area. Yeah.
And it was cool. Like there would be levels like that where it's like there was some where it's just like, ride this bike as fast as you can, or like throw these guys off the platform. But then there would just straight up be like puzzle like levels where like I don't know, like you have to do something like way more specific, way trickier. And I like that like you really didn't know going into a certain level. Like you'd try to guess based off of its name or whatever, but you didn't really know what you're going to get going into the one level from the next, because the gameplay was so different from level 1 to the last one. There was some really cool puzzle ones though, I thought, too. Or there's one, it's sort of puzzle but also kind of navigational. There's like the underground sort of labyrinth where you have to like figure out what star,
like warp from place to place.
Oh yeah.
Like red 5 leads to blue whatever, and you had to kind of, and then some guys would drop little hints. It made me think of like a puzzle you'd see in like I don't know, Phantom Hourglass. I think of like those ones where you have to like remember, like you'd have to write down the little combinations of sequence of numbers or whatever. So like they'd be like, oh, if you get to a red 5 or something, you want to go back into that star. And that like once you learned that, you could start to put together like how some of the other ones worked. That was very cool. I don't know, there's one towards even the end where it was like you had to stop a bomb.
Yeah, the statue. You had to like shake a clan pot or grab one to get a bomb to fall out.
Yeah.
But you had to place a statue underneath of it because you didn't want the bomb to explode yet.
So apparently it lands on the statue. If it doesn't fall from too far, it doesn't explode or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That one was kind of weird to figure out, but I think you figured that one out though. I looked it up, but you figured it out at the same time. I was like, I'm not very patient with that one at all. Yeah, a lot of variety in that. And I think, Merritt, you mentioned this one earlier, but I think this sort of, I sort of connected where this might have come from, because I think this might have come from when my mom got well, she didn't get married yet, but she did down the line. But when she got with who is now her husband, he had a daughter who's my age, my stepsister, and I think she might have had it. Because I think it was just a game that showed up one day. So I think maybe when they got together, our N64 collections merged. And the reason I thought of it was because the only level I like really vividly remembered from playing it back in the day was that Olympics like 100-meter, 300-meter dash, which was it was a pain, like on your thumb or finger or whatever, like to be able to tap it that well. But my stepsister, she just had this like freak ability where she could tap like crazy, and it would like, I think when we were kids she was the only one who could beat it. But that is the most memorable level because it's like it's almost painful to play it.
Yeah, it's not quite Mario Paint or not Mario Paint, Mario Party like ghost bike destroying the flesh on your palm and the control stick.
Yeah.
But it's, there's not quite as much potential to ruin your hand or the controller, but it is frustrating for sure.
Yeah, it was a big it was big to read, I guess, that if you do it using the D-pad and not the C button, you go faster, apparently.
Yes, yeah, that is the cheat because you're like, the C's buttons are like much more convenient, but yeah, you do go a little faster if you double tap.
Did we ever was it just a joke in the game about the joystick being used instead of the D-pad?
Oh, yeah.
They like mentioned it at some point, and I was like, what?
They say that?
And
yeah,
you can't
No.
can't use it, can you?
No. But they
anything.
say it in the game. There's like a line
Yeah, I remember
about using it, and I was like, can we use it? And then I tried it and I couldn't. And I'm like, are they just trolling
It's
us?
like made you look type thing.
I think so. Yeah, it's like an early troll in a game.
This is one of the only games we've played so far that like we've played a decent amount that like can utilize the D-pad, but this is one where it was like that's like the way it was meant to be played. Right? Like, I don't know. We've played some fighting games that you could use D-pad. You could use either, but this was like built around that.
Well, it's that weird, that weird Nintendo 64 controller of like, no one had really figured out how to just make a DualShock yet because that didn't exist.
Right,
and somehow the solution was like, okay, we don't want to scare people, so we'll do this 3-pronged monstrosity and just you hold either the left or the middle one. It's fine.
Yeah, it did work out fine. In fact, I thought it kind of like having the, you have your jump and your grab button, but then having those like up, down, left, right with the boost, like actually it made a lot of sense in my mind. And I don't know, actually, I thought it was like kind of a cool, like it's kind of a unique control scheme, even though it's, it's only a couple buttons.
Marina like controls kind of like Mega Man X, except she can like jet in every direction, which is super cool. And she can just move so quickly if you want to, just like rip through a stage. You can just be like launching yourself around. Figuring out how the game actually plays and stuff, you can pull off really wild stuff where you're like dashing around and like grabbing something, like throwing them into the ground. And yeah, you just like, you feel the game really makes you feel like Marina, the ultra intergalactic Saibot G,
Which was cool because you mentioned all the characters, but even like Marina herself had like a lot of personality. It was like a very fun character. I thought like the basic like voice clips they used for her and everything, even beyond Shake Shake, just the moment to moment playing as this character was a lot of fun. She had a cool design and everything. The one move that I couldn't quite pull off that good was like sort of that sliding jump move, which isn't really, and except for a couple ones where you have to get some gold gems, of which I had that sort of moment once I finally pulled it off that you were just describing, Merritt, where you have to do like a sliding jump and then you have to boost hitting the D-pad, not the C stick, to get proper, air, like across like a big lava gap to get to some platform you can't even see. And that was like a cool part of the game, was like reaching these things that you like weren't even meant to, or like you were meant to, but you didn't think you could get to, like, is this something I can actually do?
One thing I wanted to mention, because it hasn't really come up yet, that was, I think, also a strike against Mischief Makers when it came out. And also, it's wild that this game has never been re-released. I don't know who owns the rights, if it's Treasure or Square Enix, because Enix published it. But it's never been re-released. Even like on the Virtual Console, that's wild to me. I feel like it would do way better today. But one reason also why I think it didn't do great at the time in the US was because it's very Japanese.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's translated really well, and it's pretty funny. There's only like a few like errors in the translation, or like typos. I mean, I don't know what the original dialogue says, but like the aesthetics and like I think a lot of the stuff in it, people would look at it and be like, oh, that's some weird Japanese stuff in the late 90s. Like, we weren't quite at that era where people were really into anime. Like, it was starting to kind of come up, but it wasn't until around Y2K, I feel like, that that stuff really made inroads into the US. And so, like, something, I don't know, like, obviously most of the games that were coming out at the time for the N64, or a lot of them anyway, were by Japanese developers, but they were by people like Nintendo, who were just making Mario games that had like brand recognition already. Whereas this, like, okay, you play as a robot maid who shakes things with faces on them. And like, I don't know if it ever got one of these ads, but I feel like it definitely could have gotten one of those ads in like Nintendo Power or whatever, where it's like, that's right, you're a badass robot maid and you've got problems. Like, like that tone of the era of just like, they had no idea how to market this game. So they're like, oh yeah, you think you've got problems. Well, at least the professor hasn't been kidnapped and you don't have to shake your way through 52 knuckle butting stages. Like,
they were doing that for the people like me who were under barrage from my PlayStation friends.
Right.
We had to like try to spin it and make it seem cool.
You know what? We were looking at the Nintendo Power a little bit, and the one line that stuck out to me from the Mischief Makers page was like, "This robot maid doesn't do Windows, but like the capital W Windows. It's only on Nintendo 64." I was like,
"Wow,
that's pretty good."
That very very Nintendo Power of them.
Yeah.
Okay,
like,
so I did find one ad. But it isn't that. It's like, it's a Yellow Pages ad.
Oh.
Like, it's like a fake Yellow Pages ad for Marina's pest control, which is like, okay, that's better than I would have, like, it doesn't really explain what the game is about at all, but it just says like, yeah, she'll shake stuff and defeat pests or something. So sure, why not?
I think both that, like, it being like very Japanese, as you say, like I probably did when I was a kid, like I don't know if I would have like been able to articulate it like that, but that's probably how I would have felt about it at the time, and that's probably contributes to like why I don't quite like, I just thought of it as sort of like this weird, I mean it is weird, it's not weird, but like as a sort of like, what is this game? Like, I don't quite remember that. And as you mentioned, like the marketing for it, you can't really figure out what type of game exactly it is from the marketing, especially because you do so many things. But yeah, I probably had a little bit of that, like in the back of my memory, like trying to recall this game. It's just like, oh yeah, it was like this really weird. I probably thought of it alongside of like the mystical ninja games kind of had that sort of.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, that was definitely like that was way even more so than this. I feel like, of just like, we're not even gonna try to like make this make sense to you guys.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah, but I mean, playing it now is sort of like, I don't know. I sort of like, I'm kind of charmed by that sort of thing, and like things that like, especially in a game like this where it's like, if there's like something that goes over my head or something, it's sort of like, okay, well, it doesn't bother me, I guess. Especially because it's not such a, I don't know, it kind of adds to it still, like the weirdness of the game. If there's something you don't understand, like it could be intentional, it could be not, you know. And you mentioned, Merritt, like the availability of the game is pretty rough. This is, I think, it's not like the most expensive N64 game to try and track down, but it is like on the more it's like, I don't know, I think it usually goes for like $50 or whatever to just get a cartridge, and that's kind of, you know, for a lot of people who are trying to play it, they're probably not looking for a Nintendo 64 cartridge, you know. No, for even Gunstar Heroes and McDonald's in Treasure Land or whatever that we were playing, like, I don't think there was anything available on like a modern console, so don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, the McDonald's and Treasure Land game, I think it's like probably licensing. Gunstar Heroes has definitely been repackaged in like Sega Genesis collections and stuff. And some of their other games have too, but yeah, a lot of them still are kind of hard to, I mean, for a long time, Sin and Punishment like wasn't even like that game. You couldn't play that in the US legally until the Wii came out.
Right.
It was on the Virtual Console, which was like very exciting for weirdos like me. But yeah, it's so strange to me because this feels like a much more modern game. And obviously playing it now, there are some issues. Like there's a lot of slowdown. I forgot how much slowdown there was. In some levels where there's a lot of stuff happening, the game just like crawls.
Yeah. Especially like, where things are like exploding, or like the ones where you're running away from something crazy, like a lot. Yeah, it would have a hard time with that for sure.
Yeah. But otherwise, like, I don't know, it feels like a pretty modern game, and it's so weird that it is like, I don't want to say it's not like a hidden gem. Like people know about this game, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of people who just would never encounter it because it's not like easy to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this could we at least get it on Switch online or whatever? Something like that.
Nice. Yeah.
What's going on?
Like who owns the rights to this, guys? Like, come on. Like Treasure, what are you guys doing? You haven't put out a game in 10 years. I don't even know if you guys are still around.
Yeah, are they? Are they still a thing? We should have looked that up.
A couple of years ago, they said they were working on something. And they've mostly just done re-releases. Like they re-released Ikaruga a few years ago. And other stuff like that. But
it says, it's on its 30th anniversary in 2022, June 19th. They said it was working on a highly requested game.
Interesting.
Probably Mischief Makers too.
Yeah.
God, can you imagine if it was Mischief Makers too?
Yeah, they gotta get Mischief Makers in with it. Like do a little bundle release or something, or just include it in there.
That'd be awesome. I think you were talking, when you were talking about the marketing merit, like, I started thinking about, like, if this game did come out, 2024, like, it, like, just imagining, like, the marketing would be totally different. I think it would be received in a completely different way, because I think people are kind of open now to a lot of bizarre types of games and stuff like that. Like, so I don't know, I could imagine like a follow-up to it, like being well received and probably marketed more appropriately. It's kind of a minor point, but I wanted to just also briefly mention, we mentioned kind of the gold gem collectibles, but just all the like little gems and collectibles you can pick up in general, I think are cool. Like, especially like I did really think the red gem sort of like continue system they had was really fun. Like, you could still, like, even if you ran out, you could just game over but start over from where you were. But like giving those as kind of like a safety net of like, if you die, you can come back, but with like full power, or if you think like, oh, I don't need that, you can kind of hedge your bets a little bit and only spend 10 red gems or whatever. So that was like a cool system.
Plus, you can use them for Miss Hint.
Oh, Miss Hint.
Yeah, the ribboned clan ball who
Oh yeah.
yeah, you give her a shaker
We always
to get a hint
shook
for
her.
10 gems. Yeah. She just give you some kind of little hint, maybe about the bosses, or you should shake this thing. Try shaking this thing, something like that.
If you don't know what to do, try shaking stuff.
Yeah.
That's sort of
just
that's what
shake
we're
it.
going for. Just shake stuff.
That is something I liked about the game, is that it was always reminding you to shake.
Yeah.
Even I wish I should have written down, like, after you beat each world, when it shows you like the globe, it gives you like this little mantra of like shaking from within or something, like this inspirational little thing. Like they found every way, both like direct hint wise and like poetically, to let you know like you gotta shake things. And we did have a lot of moments where we were like, what are you supposed to do? And it was like, oh, we just didn't, we should just
You
shake
gotta
it.
shake it, yeah.
And we'd like look up a hint for something that was like, oh, we should have just tried to shake everything.
Yeah, that reminds me of the like obelisk boss fight.
Oh,
Where you've got the words coming down
yeah.
at you, and you just grab them and like shake it. It turns into a like opposite.
it would go from like
kind
despair
word,
to
like hope
kindness.
or something. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
throw it at the obelisk, and we were like,
Yeah.
this is very Undertale.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another
really.
like, oh, I could see how like a modern like marketing of this would be kind of in that vein, because it does have that sort of, it's like tongue in cheek, like
Yeah,
yeah.
really cool.
That was such an awesome moment. Yeah. Or it made me think of like the end of Earthbound is like that gets a little bit more like what do you call it, like trippy or whatever, but it has this sort of like where
Yeah, you don't fight a giant like fetus in Mischief Makers.
no, it doesn't get that serious, but I guess it sort of had that like, it just like they take the opportunity like
Yeah.
to do something like totally unexpected for the final boss. I don't know, I thought it was very cool. I like the obelisk guy in general, like just the, I don't know, it was again another one of those like, it makes me think of the save rooms in Symphony of the Night, where you go in and it's like this 3D geometric shape. It's one of those things that kind of like sticks out in the game and has like a cool design and like a personality too, which is strange, but this is a really fun game. It was a really cool game. Merritt, do you have any other notes? Anything else you wanted to say about the game?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's just, it's a really good example of Treasure's game design. They were really just, firing on all cylinders in the 90s. It's just takes parts of Gunstar Heroes that worked really well and expands on them, and it deserved better. I think as a society we failed Mischief Makers when it came out.
Oh.
And I'm glad that it's gotten kind of a retrospective boost. And yeah, I hope they re-release it, because I'm sure it would sell, especially if they added like some little modern, conveniences and fix some little bugs here and there. It would do really well, I think. So yeah, if you haven't played it and you're listening to this, at least go watch an LP,
Oh yeah.
Because it's a fun one.
Maybe not a hidden gem like you were saying. Maybe it's not that, but a cult classic. I guess it's kind of hit that.
Yeah, I think
sort of
that's a good
status.
way to describe it. Yeah.
So you want to see what some of that hype is about, for sure. I wanted to mention too, we haven't played it yet, but Merritt, did you play Silhouette Mirage, which was also a Treasure game?
Is that which one is that?
That is on the PlayStation, I believe. The
Oh,
PS1.
yes. I have not played that one.
Okay.
I have heard of it though.
It came out, well, I was just curious because it came out like weeks before Mischief Makers, so it just feels like a power move. Treasure.
Yeah, they were. I mean, there was a period there where it was like Gunstar Heroes, Dynamite Heady, Alien Soldier, Mischief Makers, Guardian Hero, like just like every year they were putting out bangers, and I'm not sure how they did it considering it was like not a big studio.
Right.
Even like into the mid 2000s, if you never played that Astro Boy game on the Game Boy Advance, it's also
No.
very good.
Oh, cool.
Like even as someone who like I don't know anything about Astro Boy, it's like insanely good. And you know has a lot of similar kinds of DNA to Mischief Makers. So
yeah, we're gonna check out some of those games. It's a bit of a spoiler, but we have talked to a couple people, and we are going to be doing an episode soon on Gunstar Heroes and McDonald's Treasure Land. And we were also talking about like I don't know, we're kind of into it, so I think we're gonna, as time goes on, just go back and cover more treasure games as sort of side episodes, side tangents. I'm pretty excited about that. Did you have anything else about for Mischief Makers?
There's such a huge variety of gameplay in Mischief Makers that like we talked about a ton of things and it didn't even hit like probably half of the different sort of gameplay things. So it's just really unique game.
Like the level where you're falling the whole time. That's really cool.
That is or collecting ghosts.
Collecting ghosts.
13 ghosts.
13 ghosts.
Hey man, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. No more cowboy ghosts, right? You gotta understand something. I ride the Clancers. I have the answers. I play Greek dodgeball with a virgin titty. Just me, Marina Light Years, and a lot of shaking. Oh, sure, those bees need their honey, but I need gold gems. The professor cannot wait forever. The evil empire will not allow it. So, where are you going?
Here's mine. New Mischief Makers, only on Nintendo 64.
We need to come out on NSO so we can do a playthrough stream of it or something.
That would be awesome.
Little, N64 thing.
Yeah, we gotta figure out how to stream N64, which is apparently
complicated.
So, it's a cool game. It was cool to like go back to it. It's one of the most unique games we've played. So, it was a lot of fun. Merritt, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you. Do you want to plug anything?
Well, thank you for having me. This was really fun to revisit a game that I hadn't thought about a lot since my childhood, but that I think is still really, really good. And you mentioned the book, Land Party. It's a coffee table book of photos of land parties and essays about LAN parties and also just kind of like the Y2K era of gaming and the surrounding culture. So a bit later than the period we're talking about, but there are some photos from the 90s. That's wherever you get books, local bookstores. What I always tell people is best, just because I like bookstores, but if you can't, then it's on Amazon as well. And then also I have a Patreon where I post daily comics, short fiction, all kinds of stuff like that. It's just patreon.com/merritt. And go to 1-900 Hot Dog. I'm a columnist there. Yeah. And I write about mostly about strange, forgotten children's media from the 80s and 90s. But it's a great website started by Sean Baby and Robert Brockway from Cracked. And Sean Baby also just kind of from being Sean Baby, I guess. So yeah, it's a great website, and you should check that out.
Awesome, yeah, yeah, all that stuff is great. It was great to have you. I think you said you never seen that much Mountain Dew.
I said, wow, that's a lot of Mountain Dew. Yeah,
there is a lot of Mountain Dew. Yeah,
yeah.
We were talking how much to. How much would you have to be paid to drink that meme picture that was going around of the Guinness and Mountain Dew drink that's mixed together?
Oh, that's I don't know. Like, in that context, I'm not sure which is like the mixer and which is the awful thing that I'm trying to mask the taste of. Apologies to people who like Guinness or Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I think we came to the agreement that we'd go pretty low for a sip But to drink the whole thing, it's got to be
Mm.
it's got to be up there. I'd probably do it for like $20.
I kind of said, like, however much like the time it takes me to drink it, like if you can
pay minimum
calculate,
wage,
if you can pay me
Right.
above what I would make at my job,
oh, okay.
then we got it.
Through fire, justice is served!
And of course, we want to give a special shout out to our Millennium Star tier patrons. Thank you to Infection Form, Jeremy Aber, Kiefer, Paul, and Underlined V. Thanks for the support, and anyone else who wants to check out our various tiers, we're at patreon.com/flashback64. Okay, well, anyway, if you want to, go check out our stuff in the comments, in the description. I've been calling it the comments, down below, or wherever it is. Go check out all our stuff. If you want to come on our Patreon, we can work out a price to drink the Guinness Mountain Dew. Thanks everyone for listening. And we didn't even say our next games. We skipped right over that. We have another fighting game combo. We are talking about Mace: The Dark Ages and Clay Fighter 63 1/3. Yeah, any fond memories of those games?
Oh boy! I mean, at least you can be Earthworm Jim, I think, in that Clay Fighter game. But Clay Fighter, woof, that's got I mean, I remember liking Clay Fighter, but then I think I went back to it a few years ago and was like, wow, I don't remember there being an insanely racist caricature in this game.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah. So just enjoy, I guess. And Mace is just like one of those forgettable 3D fighters of the time that I think I remember thinking was very impressive. But now I'm like, if you showed me a picture of it and was like, is this Mace: The Dark Ages or War Gods? I would just be like, you're gonna have to shoot me because I don't know.
I think that's fair. We're gonna have opinions on it compared to them, but only because we're like being weird and playing both of those games, which you shouldn't do. But I'm excited to see whatever it is in Clay Fighter, I guess. Pretty much all the fighting games we played at the time have had some weird or multiple weird racist stereotype characters. So
yeah, they had a lot of that, I guess.
Can't wait to see that in Claymation, I guess. And we'll see everybody in the next episode when we talk about those games. Bye.
Bye.
You were definitely my match, Marina.